Okay, Minorcan Navy, here we go. Big day out at the site. Of course, the Dali was moved. We were live streaming very early this morning. Actually getting on site about midnight. We went live about 2 o'clock, and I was very fortunate to have some really good friends of mine, other YouTubers, Alfred and Derek from Miami and Derek Astorino from the food boat out of Charleston. These guys were a blessing. I needed some additional equipment because when we got there, it was black. You could not see out in the river. The equipment they got allowed us to be able to show you guys the staging of the tugboats as they began to come out and take their positions around the Dali and really just get set and wait on the tide. Now, as this time period came of 5:54, we were all looking at 5:54 to be the time. 5:54 came and went. The sun began to slowly rise. Things started to really pick up around the site. More boats started to arrive. Patrol boats were out on the water. And we started to see the time kind of come and go, and we weren't seeing the movement that we thought we were going to see around that time. I think a lot of people were beginning to get a little discouraged. If you were watching the broadcast from the live stream today, you were probably like us and were beginning to think this just wasn't going to happen today. But we started to monitor, and we had some really good points where we could look for movement on the ship with some other fixed objects. You see the bridge span in the back. We were able to kind of keep our eye on this and the ship, and it really started to pay off as we were watching these key areas for movement of the ship. The Moran tugs, that's the Lynn Moran there on the back of the ship. And this area right here in the bow, this is actually the first place that I started to notice movement of the ship. Tide was at this time beginning to kind of fall down, and again, a little bit of discouragement. We had really started to have to jumble our schedule around to make this happen. If you remember, Unified Command kind of came out on, I believe it was Saturday evening, and said that Monday morning they were going to move it, and it forced me into a position where I had to kind of rearrange my schedule to be able to be there to see it. I felt like I had to be there to tell this really important part of the story to me. And I'm sure most of you that are been with us over the length of time that we've been up in Baltimore felt the same way. This is part of the story that everybody needed to see to kind of feel like we could see the light at the end of the tunnel. The movement of the ship was crucial. We're again trying to get the Port of Baltimore opened up and to restore unrestricted commerce in and out of the port for the shipping industry. So we're really anxious. We look back over at the bow, and right about 6:45 in the morning, started to see some movement there. And as we kept our eye up in our areas where we were watching, the chat started lighting up. Guys, it's moving. And it wasn't very long that we saw the Moran tugs were really starting to make headway, and the Dali began to slide back. I can't tell you guys how happy I was at this moment. the McAllister tugs that were there on site, along with the Moran tugs, working together, and they pulled the Dali in this reverse configuration all the way back to the secret marine terminal. When we left out of Dundalk, we could see the Dali back at the port. We could see that mangled area of the bow of the ship. And there you can see the roadway from the interstate very clearly on the bow. It looked to me like the procedure went very well. These tug crews working together, highly skilled professionals, made this job look so easy when they executed this plan. And look at them! Look at the amount of those container debris that had been crushed, kind of hanging off the ship. And you get an idea kind of looking at that buoy, just how fast they were moving the Dali along. At one time, checking the marine traffic app, looked like they were up to about a knot, 1.3 knots. They were moving along back up the river. Now, don't know what's going to happen with the Dali once it gets up there, if they're going to take all the containers off the ship, some of the containers off the ship. We can see some personnel here on the stern of the Dali. Not sure if this is crew or whether this is part of the Resolve Marine salvage team here. We can see some people there. Of course, the rudder system on the Dali visible right at the stern of the ship. U.S. Coast Guard in the background, kind of escorting the ship along. Well, we are back in Georgia for a couple days. We will be returning to Baltimore to continue to cover the cleanup at the bridge site. Hopefully be able to get some more images of the Dali. That's our plan right now as we see the Dali here continuing on up the river. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed this modified video from the big day. We ask if you haven't done it yet, you'll click on that subscribe link. Hit the like button for us. Leave us some comments. But most of all, hey, we want you guys to be safe out there.